a decent turnout. Before I move on any further, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the Minister, Honorable Ms. Levita Fogo, JPMP. A round of applause for her. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Norbert De Simons, Director of Youth, Sport and Recreation. Just some housekeeping matters, the panel discussion. Hopefully everyone has paper and pen. If you have a burning question, you can write it down. Throughout the discussion, we will have question times, I would say every 20 minutes or so, where we are trying to break out and have some audience interaction instead of just keeping it for the end. All right, I think that's all I have to say. Also, if you are participating in the 6:30 workshop with the Positive Coaching Alliance, that is still due to start on time. That's upstairs in room H273. It does say H274 on your schedule. That's a typo on my behalf. All right, so also I'd like to welcome our moderator for this evening, the man in blue, Mr. Earl Bearston. Now we would introduce our panelists.
Good evening to everyone, and we would like to introduce the panel for tonight's Reimaging Sports. Firstly, Katora Horton Parent-Chief, who represented Bermuda in the sport of diving. Did you know she competed collegiately for the University of Texas and was the 2004 diving team champion? She competed in the 2004 Athens Olympic Games. She made history by being the first woman of color of any nation to compete in diving and was Bermuda's first female diver. She also competed in multiple Commonwealth Games and Pan American Games. Next, we move to Sullivan Phillips, who was in the sport of basketball. He won the Golden Bowl Award as well as being named Tournament MVP at the 2011 Netrest Island Games. Phillips was named the 2012 MVP, helping BC Prevideza to the Slovakian League title. He played professionally in England, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Cyprus, winning titles in England and Cyprus. Also, he picked up the Defensive Player of the Year award in both Hungary and Cyprus. Macy O'Dell, coaching in the sport of football. Did you know to work in a professional football environment that will enhance the development of young, aspiring players to achieve full potential and opportunity through their football talents that will enhance their lives? He was a 2010 to 2015 Bermuda National Academy coach, 2010 to 2012 Youth Technical Director at the North Village Community Club, 2012 to present, he's the Technical Director for the ABC Valencia Next Generation program. Now we go to Brian Wellman, track and field. Did you know Wellman competed collegiately for the University of Arkansas, where he won 2 NCAA outdoor triple jump titles. He won Male Athlete of the Year 5 consecutive years. Wellman won the gold medal at the 1995 World Indoor Championships in Barcelona, Spain. Wellman placed 5th in the Barcelona Games in 1992, his top performance. Wellman is a 4-time Olympian and is the only Bermudian to have 2 top 6 finishes in the Olympics. He placed at 5th place in 1992 and 6th in 1996. Wellman won a bronze medal at the 1994 Commonwealth Games, and in 2009, in his first year of eligibility, he was inducted to the Bermuda Sports Hall of Fame. Last but not least, Sean Goder in the sport of football. Did you know Sean Goder started playing his career at the North Village Community Club before he was scouted during Manchester United's tour of Bermuda and signed a youth contract with them back in 1988. After leaving Manchester United, he had a prolific spell at Rotherham United and Bristol City, in which he scored a combined 110 goals in 284 appearances for both clubs. He signed for Manchester City during the 1997-98 season, and during his 5 seasons at the club, he scored 103 goals in 212 appearances and guided them back to the Premier Division. He scored his 99th and 100 goals for Manchester City against fierce rivals Manchester United in a Premier League game which they won 3-1. Goder finished his playing career with spells at Reading FC and Southend United, where he scored 23 goals in 77 combined games. He was inducted into the Bermuda Sports Hall of Fame in 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your Reimaging Sports panel for tonight.
Thank you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for our panelists. Please take a welcome, have a seat. And I will turn it over to our moderator.
Good evening, everyone, as they play musical chairs. Welcome to tonight. It serves to be a special night for information for not only them sharing their life experiences, but where they've come from to where we are now is one of the things we want to talk about in our sports. I know each one of you have your own roads and stories to tell about your sport, but having these 5 people up here tonight hopefully gives you some insight on what other things are going on around the country. I first want to give any one of the panelists an opportunity to share one of their most memorable highlights of their career that they've had throughout their lifestyle. I'll start with none other than the most chatty one is Mr. Brian Wellman.
Yeah, good evening all. My outstanding, sporting achievement would be Indoor World Championships in Barcelona in '95, and I was looking for Mr. Simons because he was the team manager at the time. So that was probably my most outstanding performance in my athletic career. To win Indoor World Championships from a little country like Bermuda was, I think, an achievement in itself, because it shows that because of where we come from doesn't limit us to put us in a box in terms of can't compete with countries with millions and literally billions of people. So that for that perspective alone was kind of, I liked it to show that just because we were from a small place didn't mean that we could achieve great things. So it was a meet that I actually broke the world championship record that I held for 9 years. So that, to say that some little kid from Bermuda could achieve something that nobody else on the planet had ever done was big. I didn't totally grasp it at the time. I had an idea of how impactful it was, but sadly to say, I think that us as a community have kind of missed the boat on it, because hopefully I thought I would influence quite a few more people behind me saying that, oh wow, he did it, I could do it.
Mr. Phillips? No, he's gonna make time. Yeah.
Honestly, if I say my most memorable moment in sport was probably being here in 2013, having the Island Games here, and I guess the most memorable moment was my kids being able to see it. As an athlete, all of us know, or maybe you had kids or you didn't, but if you did have kids, it kind of can be a strain on them. And for my kids to be able to see exactly how hard I worked and what I was doing and actually witness it and us win, that to me is probably the best moment I can think of in sport for me.
Mr. Dill?
Yeah, for me, I have both academic education and a sporting education. My sporting side allowed me my academic education. And I would say my sporting education has built the character that I have, the strength that I have, the courage that I have to do these things that I do. And working with kids, coming back to Bermuda, I always understood that I was ill-prepared when I got to college. The challenges that college put on me socially, academically, I knew that I wasn't prepared. But because I had a sporting ego, I wasn't gonna stop in college. I said, other kids were doing it, I can do it. So my ambition was always to come back to this country and help other kids transition through sports, the opportunities I have. And the biggest thing I get from that is the kids that I see and the value that they see in me and in their adult life. So, the oldest kids that I've coached now is they're probably 37 years old. And that respect that I get from the kids, that's probably what's most memorable for me.
Mr. Gooder?
I think the highlight or most memorable point for me is probably something you had raised. As a kid, sort of going to Victor Scott School and being a pawn dog and making bikes because Mama couldn't afford bikes, to actually play at Old Trafford and play against the Bastards, because at that time they were the yardstick. They were beating everyone, winning everything, and so for me it was a proud moment to not only play but show that this is the level I belong at. I had wanted that for a long time. I had sort of as athletes, we would study the opposition and we'll know their strengths, and you just winning that opportunity. And whether that opportunity came within a season or whether it took 5 seasons, and for me, it took a lot longer. But I knew that when I got there, I wanted to sort of grab that opportunity. So playing against Man United as a team that had the best players in the world, in particular at the time, was Sept, some may remember. He was the best defender. It's probably like the Van Dijk today, who plays for Liverpool. So playing against these sort of players and being able to score and play well, and in fact get the man of the match, was a really proud moment for me.
Why do I have to follow Sean Goder? I'm really excited to be sitting here, by the way. Sean Goder. My most memorable moment is participating in my very first Commonwealth Games for Bermuda. It was 2002. My roommate was Kira Aiken, and she was my roommate throughout my career and her career in all of our international events. We were little pipsqueaks on Team Bermuda. And that was my first major international meet with Bermuda on my back. And being born here, but raised almost entirely in Canada, it was amazing to be embraced by this community, by a country that I've loved my entire life, and to know that I had the support of 64,000 strong. It felt just as good as support from 300 million strong. So being at that event and having, my uncle was the Minister of Sport at the time, so he was there, my mother was there, my family was there. So like some of these guys here, being able to perform in front of the people that love you most is pretty incredible. So it was that.
Throughout you guys' time, there's been a lot of challenges, both on and off court, field, pool, track. What have you seen deteriorate over the years of people? Brian, you mentioned you hope to inspire others, but where do you think it's going wrong?
I know that's a
I think it's
multi-level. I think it's a multi-level answer, which is the problem is a lot of times we think there's the golden bullet answer or solution to the problem, when the problems are usually of multiple levels and situations. Our society has changed a lot in terms of what kids are into nowadays, as opposed to, so from most sports, fitness is a part of most sports. Most of us here are some level of fitness in some aspect or another, but most of us, when at least I was growing up, and probably most of the people sitting in this panel, we have a big, vast variety or amount of non-scheduled athletics or fitness. So you ran to and from school, played, ride your bike, jumped up and down. So the amount of time you spent outside the house running around that you didn't count as physical activity was activity. So nowadays, as coaches nowadays could tell you, you get kids nowadays in way worse shape, basically because they have great finger dexterity, but the rest of their body's in horrible shape. And so you spend a ton of time just doing basic fitness as opposed to progressing in your sport. So, like I said, to me, it's a major societal thing as opposed to just, saying, wow, it's this one aspect and that. But that's deep from, parenting and kids getting outside and playing and all the combined components. So it's hard to say that I can sit there and go, wow, that's it, we fixed that, this will work.
Mr. Goder, during your time with the North Village Rams, you were playing in front of a lot of people here in the country. You come back years later and you see that has deteriorated. What's your first thought of that?
Yeah, the crowd attendance. I just think there's a lot of distractions for the kids today. I think there's so much going on, and Brian sort of alluded to some of the things the kids are distracted by, and I think. But there are still kids out there that really love and enjoy the game, and they'll find the time and the commitment to be able to be successful. And for me, it's about one of the questions you asked earlier was like, what's going wrong? And I actually am coming here with a different message. I want to say, actually, we do a lot right. And I think, we only think that because someone comes from this other country, that they're better than what we're teaching. So I don't know if that's the message that others have, but for me, we have it within ourselves, what's my guy name now who's assistant in terms of the fitness in Ajax? Troy Douglas. He's there helping a world-class team to be the best that they can be in terms of their fitness, etc. With all of us, we had the success. It's because we went into an environment that allowed us, that pushed us and challenged us. But the knowledge that we got from, i.e. coaches and people I see in the audience, that gave me knowledge, people I played with in the audience, that, that they push me, I push them. The knowledge is her. But I don't want to go too far, because I feel that for me, up until a certain age, we're given all the right information. And part of it is actually our culture. We have a benefit that when I think about England, a kid can't be outside 12 hours playing, running up and down, whatever it's doing. It's like, it has to be 2 hours because it's raining, it's cold, it's snowing. So they're limited, whereas we're just outside. So from a fitness point, we've got benefits to that. So, I just want us to know that all the young coaches that have, from a football point of view, I can go through all the baskets, I can go to Kenny Thompson, I can go to the coaches out at Dennytown that's influenced players, and this is why you got Neki Wells and other players. We're giving them the right information. And for me, we just need to, I suppose, support the coaches and give them a bigger, I know I'm getting a bigger picture in terms of how to improve some things. Just is fields and stadiums, but we're talking about millions and half a millions to improve that. But what we can do is say, we're going to invest in this coach to take him from being a B licensed coach to being an A licensed coach, or the levels that they have in basketball. And I think because we don't make it without that information that some of you in this audience have given us and challenged us. So look around the room and know that you're giving us the right information.
Mr. Phillips, you came from a multi-sport background, but picked up basketball and went to play professionally. Making that decision to go and play a sport that is kind of a pickup game in Bermuda. We have a league that goes on, but making that decision, how difficult was it at the time, and how do you feel when you left Bermuda, how the game is now?
It's obviously difficult because you're influenced by people around you. Like Sean just said, it's the culture around you that come. I think I like to say it, sometimes it's perspective shapes your reality. And so the perspective I had here was football is life. And it was an amazing game, but now opening the parameters going abroad, it's now, well, there are other options. And the reality doesn't have to be one picture. It can be multiple pictures if you choose to take it. So for me, I just think, I agree with Sean. The information to a certain age is there. I think where we lack, and a lot of kids lack and don't make it, is the application. So information not applied is a waste. Information used and applied, now you get to see the end product of what you see here. Because we're all products of you guys giving us information. Bullet, you open the gym for me every single night. Do kids really want to do that now? No, they want to play PlayStation. So their perception is, oh, this is more important. The reality is you get less of these type of athletes. So I think the information is absolutely spot on, but I just think there's got to be a bridge to the application where they're encouraged to develop more.
Ms. Horton, Parent Chief, diving is something we do off the rocks and with a big smile on our faces, but you decided to do it at a pool. The challenges you faced growing up, picking the sport that you loved and continue to develop youngsters in, when making that choice, how do you come to terms with it?
I don't know that I made the choice. I was 5. So, like Sullivan, like Sullivan, I played a lot of sports, right? My mom was shortstop for the Big Blue Machine, and so obviously her first thought was, I'm going to throw a ball at her and she's going to catch it. It hit me in the face, so that wasn't going to work. And we had to find something that I could do. And things, you know, to hear Brian talk about play and learning through play, I did a lot of that. We ran around a lot, even growing up in Toronto. So things with my body, I did gymnastics and figure skating and diving, and I took to those things. But it was the coaches, I think, that surrounded me, so back to your point, who made me into this. So I'm taller than most male divers, curvier and darker than most divers. And that was something that the world had never seen before, and at the time was pretty hesitant to let in. But I mean, anybody who knows my mother knew that wasn't going to fly or stand. So we set out to be the best that I could be, period. In this body, in this world of racial discrimination, and a sport where it's a subjective sport, so it's judged. And if the dives don't look as good in black, you're not going to get the scores, and you won't be as successful. So pushing that boundary was something that I never did at 5. You know, that was the environment and the support system around me that pushed that boundary for me and with me.
Mr. Dill, you talk about education and sport and what it done for you. What advice are you giving youngsters nowadays that are coming through and following the same path in which you passed?
Definitely. I mean, if I just go back into my history a bit, I really never left Bermuda for an education. I didn't. I left Bermuda because I had an opportunity to play football. That's what was promised to me, a scholarship. You know, and being exposed outside my culture, outside what was happening in Bermuda, it exposed me to now see the importance of me being educated. And it created pathways for me. It created opportunities for me traveling around the U.S. You know, it structured my life. So we have this conversation that sports is a game. It's actually not a game. It's actually part of our lives. It's part of who we are. So it's really not a game. So they need to take that serious and understand what it can do for your life. I go visit Sean Goda a lot, and I walk into a stadium with Sean Goda, and trust me, what happens when you walk into a stadium in Manchester United? I mean, I was down in Penals Park in the dirt with Sean Goda, and when you walk in the stadium with him, you'll see it's not a game. I mean, I'm walking stadiums with him, and he's trying to hide. I'm saying, well, why is this guy trying to hide from people? It's something, you know. As soon as somebody spots him, and what happens when they spot him and the autographs start coming, you'll see this is not a game. So take it serious. It's actually not a game. It's going to be part of your life.
I want to give people in the audience an opportunity, if they have a question at this time, raise your hand and we'll just continue to go on. Okay. Back to you, Ms. Horton, Parent Chief. When you walk into the arena of the Commonwealth Games, as you said, what changes?
Well, first of all, Sean Goda led us out. So it was basically like Team England walking in. I mean, I've never seen or heard, I've never heard noise like that. I've never seen applause like that. And knowing that this guy had Bermuda on his back too was pretty special. So what changed for me was the knowledge that, like I said, that was my first meet, but the knowledge that this was not the end, this was the beginning. I had not arrived. Here I was stepping in an arena where someone had built a legacy for Bermuda that we now had to build on. I mean, he didn't even participate in the Commonwealth Games. They just called him up and said, well, you walk with us. And, you know, I mean, the energy and the, you know, just the aura that somebody like this, of this magnitude, brings to a team is incredible. And knowing that we're on the coattails of that legacy of the Clyde Bests and the Randy Hortons and the Big Blue Machines of the era, that changes you. And it makes you think, you know what? At some point, when I'm off this stage, or perhaps during the time that I'm on this stage, I will have to do this for somebody else. Someone will have to look at me and want to do with me and behind me what we did with and behind Sean Goder.
Sure.
Thank you. I didn't anticipate you saying all that. But for me, it was a proud moment because, again, I've got Bermuda and I'm thinking, you know, people from Somerset, St. George's, Bacatown, you know, Hamilton Parish are here to represent us. So I felt very proud to walk around the stadium. And I probably didn't take in what she had taken in because a lot of it seemed to be normal for me at that time. But it was a very proud moment, you know, to be sort of the flag bearer and walking out with Bermuda around the stadium. So it was a very, very, very proud moment. Yeah, it was awesome.
Brian, during your era, it was a handful of you guys doing a lot of things around the world, but you faced a lot of challenges because it seemed like it was you guys against the country and the world. How were those times? How did you face those times?
I say most of us up here have a support group, basically. So you got to have people in your corner pulling in the same direction you're trying to go. Everybody else is not pulling in that direction, you cut loose. And so, you have that day-to-day, you walk with people who, especially in the beginning before you show any promise of achieving great things. Oh, you can't do, and we all heard this, right? Oh, you can't, why are you doing that? Why you doing this? Why are you doing that? Let's go hang out, let's go kick it. So it's a sacrifice. All of us up here have made sacrifice. Like I ask people, 1995 New Year's Day, where were you? At 5 a.m. in the morning. Most of us say people in a bed or coming from a party, all right, hanging out. I was running Kilimanjaro, Horseshoe Bay Beach. You know where that is? And the reason I know why, because I was running Kilimanjaro New Year's Day at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so the sacrifice is I didn't hang out New Year's Day because I realized what I had on my plate, thus going forward. World championship, world record, right? This is sacrifice, but that's not even, it started way before that. So the obstacles are always going to be there. If you want to be the best on the planet at what you do, there's, like somebody put this to me, it was great. In track and field, there's 80,000 seats in the stands, but 8 lanes. So only 8 people get together on the stage to compete, but 80,000 people get to watch. Which one you want to be? So there's a lot more work take place to be in the 8 lanes than does to be in the 80,000 seats. And so that's the separation. So you gotta realize it from the get-go. Once you get into this game and you want to be the best you can be, you want to get to where most of us are retired from our sport. One thing I promised myself when I get here, I said I'm not going to have no what ifs, and I don't. I know more now than I did then. I wish I could have done some things better, but that's hindsight's 20/20. But I did the best with what I had, the information that I had, put myself in the best possible situations with what I had to work with. And we have a ton of benefits, and like I said, sand, hill, beach, sun, you can get the job done right here. This is a stepping stone to get you to wherever you want to go. So there's tons of obstacles. But the key is you got to separate, like I said, you got to have your support group. My parents in my corner, I had a great coach. Same like these guys are talking about, the knowledge. The knowledge in my sport, especially right now, is huge. We could accomplish anything we want in the sport of track and field with the knowledge we have on this rock right this moment. My friend right here, I'm gonna big him up, Mr. Bean. His knowledge of jumps and sprints and all the track and field, to be honest, I ain't gonna put him in a box like that, is sufficient. If he has somebody with the skill set and the dedication, they'll get wherever they desire to get to. But we had that knowledge. There's tons of people walking in this island, you'd be shocked, that have the ability, if you believe in, because the other thing is this, you gotta buy in. You as an athlete, I was all my chips in the middle of the table. So whatever my coach told me we were doing, and that's the other thing. I was a student of what I did. So I learned. So Mr. Swan was my coach, and we didn't just do things to do things. He would teach us, okay, this is the process, and this is why we're doing it. So later on in the process, he'll come to you and say, okay, what are we doing today? And then you would say, I think we're gonna do this, this, and this. He says, why? And so you got to be a student of what you do. So you got to understand the principles and the direction behind what you do and the knowledge of what you do. Because as a more informed athlete, the better you're going to become, because you're going to buy into it. So that's the more reason why you buy into it. So my relationship between my coach and myself, and then my parents who supported me, that's all the people I need in my corner, because I ain't worried about anybody else. All the rest of the people, they're not waking up at 5:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning and going to work out in the morning with me and doing all the little things that I need to do to become better. So you don't worry about what, because if that person's not helping you, you don't worry about them. You cut them loose.
Mr. Phillips, you alluded to what Mr. Goda alluded to about up to a certain age. Whereabouts, well, different sports obviously, the age would vary, but where do we look past that certain age? How do we get them over that fence?
I mean, each situation is different, isn't it? Each person has different attributes and skill sets, and they can develop early or they can develop later. So it's difficult to say where do you call it quits. Mm-hmm. But you know, I believe that the dream is only there until you make it a reality. And once you begin to go on that path and make it a reality, then the sky's the limit for you. I don't believe there's an age you cut off. I started playing football when I was what? 10, 11. Everybody laughed at me. I played for the U23s. So there's no limit in age, but there is a point in time when you have to kick in and say application and information will take me here. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people don't get is everybody wants to be elevated, but nobody wants to separate. Elevation requires separation from certain things and attributes to get to the next level. And until you do that, I don't care what age you are, you're stuck.
Ms. Horton, Parent Chief, what separates, going with what Sullivan said, what separates a regular diver to that exceptional diver?
So if I can piggyback off of what Sullivan said, and not answer your question yet. I think there is an age where it's difficult to get kids past a hump. There's a hurdle there where everything is bombarding them. They have school, they have friends, they have boys or girls, they have a social life that they're trying to fit into their reality. And this is, I mean that's tough. So without the support system, and that's apparent, I mean, I was dragged to that pool. And I mean, not like kicking and screaming. I was dragged to the pool. I'm not going today. I've got this to do. And so, you know what? When you falter, even though you're a student of the game, sometimes as a teenager, that stuff goes. You got better things to do. So our coaches and our parents are the ones that make us great. And you know, I think about, back to your question, and not just in diving, in any sport, in any part of your life. You become good by surrounding yourself by people who do what you do. But you become great by surrounding yourself with people who do what you do better than you do it. I went to the University of Texas as the second lowest ranked diver on the team. We had Olympic gold medalist Laura Wilkinson. We had 2 Olympic medalists in the Dumais brothers. I mean, Olympic medalists in just in a family, let alone in a club or in a state or in a nation like that. And I went there because I knew I was not going to be the best in the pool. If you go somewhere and you're the fastest kid on the track, you are in the wrong place. You need somebody who's going to push you. And every so often, you're going to get somebody who will drag you all the way to their level so that you can surpass it. So that, I think that's the deciding factor there. And I mean, it doesn't come at an age. It can just click for anybody, but it comes from a support system that you build over time. And, you know, I mean, I have friends from those Commonwealth Games in 2002 that are friends today that come to my diving camp and help us coach our kids on a volunteer basis because they love the sport and because it's new here. In a pool, not off the rock. So, you know, I mean, that's a real honor. And having those people in my support system and in my network has grown me in leaps and bounds just through sport. So that's the difference between being one of the 80,000 and being in one of those 8 lanes.
Real quick. Yeah, support group, huge. And like you said, I went to University of Arkansas. At the time, Mike Conley was the indoor world record holder. Edric Floreal was 2-time, or maybe he ended up being 5-time NCAA champ in the triple jump. So I went to a place where, like you said, I got on campus and I was probably the 5th or 6th best guy there. So that's what Couture was talking about, putting yourself in an environment that allows you to progress to where you want to go, where people are doing what you wish to achieve later, which is the big thing. We have a problem here because obviously we don't have that environment, but you prepare yourself to put yourself in those environments. That's huge.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on a point that was made earlier in terms of what age. What I know is, and whenever I see Bermuda kids come over to England at a young age and around 11 or 12, whether they're visiting or staying there indefinite, what I find is certainly teams that come over from Bermuda around the age of 13, we are more than a match. So for me, up to that age of 13 and 14 is where I know we're given the right knowledge and the right information. So know that and trust that. We don't have to wait for somebody to come from some other state or country to say, this is how you do it. Know that we're giving you the right information. So for me, if kids are going over to England or America, at the age of 13, those who really want it, the word student was used earlier about being a student, those who really want it are going to practice and study the game and how can they improve. I'm going to share a little story because Bascom's there, David Bascom. The two of us used to sit up and sort of practice, think about skills and tricks and how to beat a player. And so I was in a situation where I go to school and the kids I went to school with, they had lunch 5 days a week. Well, I didn't have lunch 5 days a week, so I'd come up with a beat and say, I'm going to go through your legs, but you got to give me your lunch if I go through your legs. Yeah. And I used to have victims that say, what you got for lunch? Let me see what you... No. You got apple? Yeah, okay, you, right. And in short, you know, the things that we used to study were such things as, if you can visualize, if I'm got a ball shielding it, sort of to my right here, and the player coming to get the ball, the first thing they do is they stand with their legs closed. And I say, I'm going to go, so I bait them with, I'm going to go through your legs. And the minute they stand still with their legs closed, I stand on one foot, I nudge them, what happens? The leg goes real wide. I take the ball, I drag it through, get it, and I say, give me your lunch. But I say all that to say, when you're a student of the game, you study and you figure out a way. And I know each and every one of us has figured out a way on how to be that much better. So we've had many a nights of sitting and thinking. We made up tricks on how to injure a player when I have the ball. This is the stuff that we did. And I'll share that with you too. But basically, I would have the ball, and I'll just put my right foot on it, and as you go for it, I just lean forward, and my knee will hit your thigh. But you see, so what I'm saying is that when you really want it, when you figure it out, and figuring it out is 5:30 in the morning, making runs, you know, or figuring out how to do different tricks, and you ain't doing it just this week. You're doing it. It's all the time, and I know there's plenty more of us that's in Bermuda. I can't sit there and say that every kid that goes away or that tries track and field or diving is going to make it. But I know with the knowledge that you're all given, we got more of us You know, so just know that, yeah, we're students.
We all know nowadays that sports is challenged because of different environments that we find our kids in. What do you guys, when you hear these stories about kids and upbringings, I know Sean just talked about not having lunch every day, so that he figured out a way, but some of these kids are not astute as that to try and figure out a way. So what are we hearing now and how can we address it?
I'll take a shot at that. Those kids from the challenged background, aren't those the kids that are actually are the top sportsmen in the world all over? That's actually just a normal thing. Why? They don't have lunch. So they've got to figure out a way to get it. So they've got to figure out a way to get that. So that's normal in the world. And as we relate that to our country, we've got to figure out how to address those kids, how to motivate those kids. Andrew Bascom used to say something to me, and we use the word to get to kids. All they're looking for is opportunity. Once you give them an opportunity, they're going to take it. They got the aggression, they got all those things. So it's normal. So we have to find a way to create pathways and give them opportunities. But for me, and especially in football, and I always use this in football, you know, those are the people that get to the top level. Suarez bit somebody at the World Cup. He actually bit him. And it wasn't the first time he bit him.
Right.
And he comes from that environment. After he bit him, Barcelona, they gave him $1 million contract to play with Messi. It's normal. And we have to we as a country have to start to embrace those kids.
Solomon, you played in some...
But
No problem.
Macy is absolutely spot on. You know, we have to embrace these kids because they're the ones now, what I'm finding in England, they're actually embracing these kids. And this is why we look at the England squad. These players have more flair because these kids are coming from the streets and they're bringing something different to what players have brought years ago. And not only that, playing in front of 40,000 can be very frightening. But if you have a life of you're always running from the police, you're not afraid of 40,000. And that could be the biggest problem. That could be the problem is I have the ability to play in front of 40,000, but when I get there, I stage fright. So, and these kids, if they get so far with the application, the desire, the support network of us believing in them, etc., and you roll on to years on, these are the ones that can get on their stage. And if I give you an example, and I don't know his background, a Pogba, comes across, you think, is he arrogant? My guess is his background is probably somebody that came from the streets with that type of background, but he's just got a belief in himself. And I know he's going through this sort of period now, but I think we've got those type of people in Bermuda. And so we shouldn't just think, you're no good, you're rude. I think that we can look at these individuals and there's possibility for some of them.
Yeah, real quick. That's it, because sport is, at least at the elite level, it's hard, it's tough. There's a lot of obstacles, a lot of hurdles. It's not easy. So therefore, if you have somebody who comes from that lifestyle, they're already practicing the obstacles and how to get over obstacles and how to become, it's a tough life. So therefore, just to survive day to day, they're actually practicing how to overcome adversity on a day-to-day basis. Where some of us who maybe come from a little more affluent situation don't have to worry about those obstacles. So now, when you give them an opportunity to become great at a sport that could totally change their life, they do that every day. So they're actually getting more practice in day-to-day just living in terms of application to the sport. So that application from life to sport is easier transition.
We have a question or comment from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Baisden. Good evening, all, and thank you for your participation and your contribution to this wonderful country. In the last conversation, we used the verb embrace. Embrace these young people who have desperate backgrounds. I'd like you to expand on what you mean by embrace. Okay, what do you mean by embrace for each sporting body or club or school? Because you're I want you to kind of put out in our atmosphere right now, what does that look like? So we try to work toward that goal. I mean, I know what it means, but we're not just talking about the act of hugging. there's some development that all of you are kind of looking for or inferring. So I'd like you to expand on that, please.
Well, for me, embrace, I'll go all the way back to some of us here were around. Clive Long was here, and he would actually go get kids from school. So basically to fill the gaps. So if you have a family situation that is lacking whatever aspect of it, in terms of coaching and support, you got people who fill the gap. So filling the gap could be, buying a kid dinner or whatever the shortcoming is to basically attempt to embrace, because here you have people coming from maybe a situation that's not ideal, and us as coaches and us as support people is trying to fill those holes and gaps to embrace these people, to make them feel a part of to feel a part of something, so that they feel that, hey, somebody cares about me, somebody, really is trying to help me achieve some of the things that they think that I can achieve. So to me, my coach was more than a coach, and not that I needed any of those other filling holes. I had a good family background structure, but I could have conversation about anything with my coach. And so some of those other holes in terms of things in my life that I need to talk to somebody about, whatever that situation was, I could have that conversation with him, and I might not be able to have that with somebody else. So the embracing is basically the life gaps that are missing, that I think a lot of coaches can tell you that, because most of these coaches would know what's going on in a lot of these kids' lives, because you see what's happening on a day-to-day basis and what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And so to me, it's a stopgap in trying to help fill the holes and make their life more whole.
It's many concepts to embracing, but in the short form, embracing them with an opportunity that can change their life. Because at the end of the day, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody that's challenged, and I'll take it to the Muhammad Ali story. I've read it in Muhammad Ali's book. He said he didn't even like boxing. He was too pretty. He didn't like knocking people out and somebody punching him. He's really pretty. But he was embraced in boxing that can change his whole life. Boxing changed his life because it was either boxing or washing somebody's car and saying, yes, ma'am. So embracing means to make the sacrifices and put the time in that helps somebody change their life via sports.
When I think about, how do we embrace them, for me, it's about the standards that you have set for them or they have set for themselves. And you say, listen, meet me halfway. Whatever, you're a support mechanism, whether it's a parent, a coach, a friend, meet me halfway. You're good at this, but you show up late. You can be better by showing up on time. You show up on time, then I can play this part and do this. So setting a standard, because when they go and get challenged at that next level, away in America, away in England, or wherever it may be, that's just a requirement. So, by setting certain standards for them, it will help them in preparation in terms of the future. And then you talk about the opportunity, then that comes along. So I think it's, for me, it's about the standards, that having that communication with them and having those standards and say, listen, I think you're a good player, you're a good diver or basketball, but this is the standard here. I've seen you be there, but this week you're here, next week you're there, you're here. How can we get you to her? And that conversation isn't a tell you conversation. It's asking for them, because they have buy-in by giving you solutions to it. So they say, well, okay, I commit to being early, or I commit to spending X amount of time working on what we call those dives now. I'm thinking about the diving now, the jackknife. The jackknife, everything twist. So this is how we can embrace them, but we're challenging them So, but this is how we embrace them, and that along the way is what's gonna keep them there, but and still challenge them and push them.
I'm sorry. When I think of it, when I think of embrace, I see it two ways. One, the first part is transparency. I think kids and young people a lot nowadays don't buy in because they don't think you're honest and open about where your mistakes are. I tell kids all the time, I was a drunk when I played. That's why I didn't go to another level. You want to make the same mistake, or do you want to go beyond me? So a part of their development, or a part of people believing in you, is transparency, and you being able to say, these are my faults up front. I think the other part of that is, I like to call it bridge work. And wherever they are, if it's elementary, I create a bridge for you to get to middle school, whether it's your skills, your talents, and now we're talking sports, but I want to help you get there. Whether it's sponsor you to a camp or help you out after school and teach you the skill set. And you create another bridge to go to high school, and then you create another bridge, hopefully to get them a scholarship. But I think what Sean said is so important is but there has to be a standard. And on my bridge, there are standards. If you can't follow these standards, then you don't need to be on my bridge. I can't help you. So it's a two-way street, in my opinion, that there has to be transparency. You have to be honest. You have to be open. Because 9 times out of 10, when they see that, most of these kids, most of these young people, they'll run through a brick wall. I know I did. These guys used to tell me all these different things. Bullet used to give me ride homes after playing when I was a young boy. Now when he said, go run and chase this guy all 20, 40 minutes, I'm going to do it. Because I know he has my best interest at heart, and I know he's being absolutely transparent with me. And that's his bridge. So if we create more bridges with honesty and standards, I think a lot of people will jump on it, and you'll see a lot more growth in sport.
You have a question?
Can I? So for me, the embrace part is, it comes from a different place. Sports is the great equalizer, right? At the end of the day, talent is not determined by socioeconomic status. Where the socioeconomic status comes in is the opportunity granted. Just because you go to a school where your parents pay does not mean that you are more or less talented than the kid where your parents don't pay. But you may be put into circumstances where you are surrounded by people who make that diamond in the rough a reality. We got a lot of kids out here, and I'd love to use my camp as an example. I have a diving camp for kids, and we get 24 kids each week, and every week I have 4 free spots, sponsored spots, and there are financial aid and foster kids. So we get some names from schools, and they are fully funded, and they get the same gear and the same opportunities that the kids who pay for camp get. They're not any more talented or less talented because they come from that background, but now they're being put in a pool with everybody else where they can be taught and they can be molded and they can be led and coached to the same level as everybody else. So that hard work, that coaching, that love, and the belonging, don't come and tell me you in a gang. This is your gang. This right here, Star Diving, is your new gang. Thank you. So all of that stuff, that's that love that we get from our coaches and our parents and stuff. That is what makes this happen. Sport is what it is. We get into rooms with people from all different races, different backgrounds, different everything. And you, at that start line, have the same opportunity as anybody else to get to the end of it first. And the determining factor there is your hard work and your opportunities. So for me, the embracing is providing those kids with opportunities that they may not have been exposed to otherwise.
We have another question?
Thank you very much. This has been a wonderful forum so far. And what I hear you all saying, and actually hasn't been verbalized, is that it takes a village. It takes a village to raise these kids they have parents at home, but then they go to school and they have another village, and then they come to this sport and they have another village, and each child is different. And your standards that you're talking about are actually life skills. Making time to come to practice is a life skill that you're going to take and you're going to apply when you go to work. And that pride that you put into your training is the pride that you put into your work when you become a contributing person in society and you have your own family and you have your own household. And it's all these things that make that child a wonderful contributing adult. And what I think is so important, and again hasn't been verbalized exactly, is that it's how the children feel about themselves. So when they are receiving the coaching and somebody takes the time to care and takes the time to direct them and motivate them, and they're feeling this from all the various different aspects, and if they're not getting it home, at least they're getting it somewhere else. That is what's going to make them a great person. And whether they are the top Olympic swimmer or the best footballer is irrelevant. It's how they feel about themselves. And that's what's going to make Bermuda great. And everyone in this room and all our coaches play a huge part in that. And it's so understated.
Just to carry on a little bit, I went over to Ajax because I'm always intrigued in looking at different models and how they coach and educate and improve players. And one of the things, and every club, from Barcelona to now currently Man City, really sort of used the model that Ajax had used through Johan Cruyff. But the one thing I sort of got from him in talking about the support network and parenting is the coaches at Ajax were like father figures. And they were seeing the coaches at Ajax almost more than they were seeing the parents. And there was, he was talking about a trust. There was such a huge trust that these players had. So when they went on the field, they solely believed in these coaches and bought into it. But I think back to that whole Ajax and how they had things. As parents and coaches, we are the same. Essentially, we're the same. Yeah.
Another question? Question or comment?
Good evening, panel. Good evening, everybody. I'm Nathan Deere from Bermuda Boxing. I've been noting down a lot of tidbits of what's been said because everything is kind of sparking me. But I do want to go on, Mr. Gooder, your comment. You said earlier tonight, you said fields and stadiums are great, but we have, as far as people, what we need to be successful. And I appreciate that statement. But what I'm asking is two questions in one. So I'm a teacher by trade. I teach at Cedar Bridge. A kid comes to me and he says, "Oh, don't worry, Mr. Deal, I can fail this test." You know why? I'm not going to be here next year. My mom's sending me to England, blah blah blah. And I say, "You'll be here in September." So and then September comes, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, well, you're still." Anyway, but because I'm putting it out in the atmosphere, we tend to always have to leave this place in order to be successful, in order to get those opportunities. That tends to be the trend. So my question would be, what benefit would that sports performance-based school here in Bermuda be to a young person that's trying to get that opportunity? Or I was going to ask about a stadium, but leave that alone. About how could we benefit from that type of program here?
I think with having a program here, the challenge is you cannot duplicate the competition. So if I'm in Bermuda and I'm competing against my Bermuda divers, and I only go to a certain level, but now these same divers all are from Canada, whoever and wherever, all of a sudden now my standard has to go up. So having a program here, it's only gonna movers, because we'll walk into it and we'll think, oh, facilities are brilliant, it's great. But I think it only have that short-term effect of raising us. But then it'll be like, I'm still diving against Brian. Brian ain't never beat me in a jackknife. Yeah. So really, it's about the competition that's overseas. That's what stretches us and that's what pushes us, you know. And you know, it has to be duplicated. Sorry? Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So it has to be duplicated overseas. We have to be overseas to get that competition. Yeah, I don't know if different views.
Yeah, it's totally about the competition. That's the only reason to get out of here ultimately. I'll give you an example. I went from here in terms of high school to junior college first in California and then to Arkansas. While my coach here in Bermuda had given me more information than definitely what I had learned in California. And then the knowledge I got in Arkansas was, let's put it this way, if I took my Bermuda coach to Arkansas, I think I would have been at least as good, if not better, an athlete than I was. So it wasn't the coaching and the information, it's the opportunity. I happened to show up to practice with, 1996 Olympic Games, like I said, it's 8 people in the finals, right? 4 of those guys, 3 of those guys and myself were in the Olympic final. So half of my training crew made the Olympic final. But I worked out with that every day. So my level had to, as Sean said, go up. So our biggest problem is the lack of numbers. So we're gonna never ultimately be able to fix that, because the other thing is though we scavenge each other's athletes, because now my best track athletes, the best football players, the best basketball players, the best diver, it's the same person. You know, and so the sad thing is though, where's the competition? That's the problem we have. It's the numbers. So yeah, we could have a great sports academy, but the level will get to her, and then like you said, unless we import a ton of competition, it's not gonna get any better.
You had a second part? You had a second part?
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? No? Well, I'm going to ask Mr. Phillips. You've played in some countries where, when we look around, we see it's some rough places, and obviously, racism plays a major part in sports, and part where you played. How did you manage to deal with that? And then, Mr. Good, I'm going to ask you next, because it's starting to creep in again in the UK in football. Yeah. So, Mr. Phillips.
Ignorance is everywhere. I've been in towns where I've been the only black person there. People look, they stare, they want to touch you. Do your hair? Are you real? Like, and you're looking like, don't you watch TV? Like, are you serious? And you have 2 approaches. You can be in your feelings and say, I hate this place, I hate these people, and have an ideology of negativity. Or you can look at it and say, this is where I am. This is where I'm put to perform. And if I don't perform, I don't have to worry about them. They'll send me home. So for me, personally, it's a business. Yes, I've been in a stadium where people are like, ooh, calling me a monkey through banana peels. What do? You get in your feelings, or do you stand up and say, the quality of who I am and what I do will speak so loud, they won't even remember what you did. So that was my approach. Like, I don't have time for it. You can say whatever you want. You can call me whatever you want. But as long as my name's on the trophy as the winner, that's what's going to last. People won't remember that you threw a banana peel, but they will see my name on the trophy or in a banner saying that we won. So you have to have that mental strength to say, it comes with the territory, as nasty and as ugly as it is, and it shouldn't be around. Like, it's really sad. Unfortunately, ignorance is everywhere.
It's absolutely spot on. The worst occasion I had really was actually having it from a manager. And I think that if I would have reacted and responded in what would have been a normal way to react, I would have never been on to have the career that I had. And this incident actually had happened when I was at Rotherham. Long story short, the manager, we actually won the game at Wembley. So what should have been a really exciting, memorable moment. For me, being excited on your coach coming home, and it's, you know, I'm thinking, wow, you know, I'm first Bermudian to play at Wembley, to win at Wembley, and then the scenario changed into, long story short was, the coach goes across a car, the players are saying all these things to some ladies in the car, and he came out and called me a black so-and-so, and this is the manager. And I didn't even know what the players were on about. But I had a 2.5 hour drive back, not even thinking that I've just won first Bermudian to play at Wembley, etc. I was devastated. And so what I did at that point was when we got back to the ground, I said to the manager, "You're totally out of order. That wasn't me. I didn't even know what the players were saying. I was trying to find out who they were talking about, what they were saying, but it wasn't me." And he had only called me out. So I'd asked for him to apologize to me in front of the whole team. And inside of me, it was a whole nother response that I wanted to do. But I know that I wouldn't be sat here sharing my journey. I will be sat there asking questions about everybody hearing their journey. So for me, that was the worst, because it was a scenario I couldn't win. Because if I decided to fight the coach, well, I would have been wrong, because surely I had to be wrong to be having an argument with the manager. Surely the manager's right. So, I guess that's my temperament. I'm not an aggressive person that stands. So how I dealt with it ended up being the best way to deal with it. And from that point, I actually grew from being a boy to a man. At the time, I was only, 23, 24. You feel you're a man, but I actually matured, and I learned a lot about me and how I dealt with that. And there were other incidents, but for me, I think that was the worst, because early years, I had times when playing against a player, and you'd have that sort of abuse happening, and I could ignore that, and I could blank that in school and just walk across and go, "How you like them apples?" But when it's a manager, I think, you know, I'm glad in the way I responded, and I grew up, and I learned a lot about myself with how I responded that way.
Obviously, Ms. Horton, parent chief, you alluded to it in your opening statement that you was the only one of color, and it's a different look. How challenging was it for you growing up in the sport and helping to change it?
You know, I think sitting here in this panel as the only woman, which is disheartening anyway, and no disrespect to the people up here, because they're incredible. We have some amazing female athletes who have broken barriers every step of the way. And I mean, if I've seen further, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of them. So the Debbie Jones Hunters of Bermuda are the reason that I'm here. That being said, you know, I had a mother who absolutely batted for me at every turn. I excelled in a sport where nobody thought I belonged, and my success was dependent on them liking me and giving me the right scores. And, you know, today, one of my watershed moments for me was at the 2004 World Cup in Greece. Everybody knew I should have been in a semifinal. I dove my behind off. I was so good. And it was the Olympic qualifying event. You had to be top 35, and everything in my head, I knew I was top 18, and I ended up 34th. And it's funny because I think looking back, it's an emotional thing, because looking back, I worked so hard to get there, and I just tears everywhere. I went to my mom and said I came 34th. She said, "You only had to be 35th. They didn't see you sneaking in the back door. You still got to the top 35. We're going to the Olympics." And that was it, you know? So at the end of the day, I had to be twice as good to get half the scores that they got. But you know, here I am today, and I am the woman that I am today and the woman in sport that I am today because of all of those experiences. And you know, women go through a lot on the daily. We hold y'all up, right? And we do it on the daily. And we don't get half of the praise or the recognition that we should be getting. We don't get the funding, we don't get the opportunities, which is why we have women in sport committees and Women's History Month and things like that, so that you can see that this is a career for girls. This is a career for women. You do not have to be a boy to excel in sport. So the sexism, the racism, all that stuff is just water off a duck's back when you're strong enough in your support system and in your conviction of where it is that you're supposed to be going. And I knew full well that I would have the Olympic rings tattooed on my body at some point in my life. And that was it, you know? Either you fall apart or you make history. And somebody's got to do it. So why not you?
Over the last few years, a lot has been talked about drugs in sport. It has been prevalent throughout all sorts of sports. We see it all the time. Brian, in your sport, it's one of the most talked about thing, even more than the gun going off. How do we make sure in this country we ensure that our athletes understand the risk and the penalties of getting caught up in something of this nature?
There's obviously two levels of drugs. The issue we deal with here is more recreational as opposed to performance balanced. And in my sport, in the world scene, it's about trying to beat my competition. So I know if you all know about the Balco scandal, which actually was tied up in more than just track and field, but we were probably the leading of the story. But you know, that was also the Barry Bonds situation. They all come out of that same layup. So we have you know, drug and sport where, so when I was competing, there used to be, it was funny because I could get drug tested 3 times in a week from 3 different committees, which was crazy because I was competing in the US in the university, so NC2A could actually drug test me, random, don't know, I'm show up to practice, and actually it was the same people, they all used the same people. It was an old white couple, his husband and wife, they used to come down there, and once you see them, you know what was happening though, but they come drug test you. And so this happened one week where they drug tested me, I think it was a Tuesday, no problem, cool, I think it was NC2A, because back then I used to be able to compete in USA indoor nationals, so they used to let foreigners into USA indoor nationals. So on Wednesday, they came back and drug tested me, but from the USATF at the time. Right. And so that was crazy. I was like, okay. And then on like Friday, I got drug tested for the IAAF because I was in the top 50 in the world. So you can get drug tested by, yeah, it's crazy. But so the problem we have here locally, I think, is more in terms of local before we get out of here, before we go to universities and become pro, is the recreational, obviously, you know, got to keep people off the weed, right? Because you'll fail a drug test, which will get you banned, or stimulants and other recreational components. Mm-hmm. So that is critical because, you know, I don't know what the suspensions are. Ms. Bean over there, and it could probably give you better information on that aspect in terms of in our sport, because I don't know what the recreational drug bans are. But you know, you can miss time out of sport. You got, you know, standing against your name, and if you're competing at the elite level, you can lose your sponsorship. It's a lot of not worth it, basically. But in terms of the stories that we see, most people like we just had basically the #1 male sprinter in the world mystery drug test, but that's a simple situation of filling out paperwork. And I used to have to do that too because I was based in Arkansas, but as soon as that was back in the day when we had travel agents and not do stuff on your own phone, I said, before the first snow, I'm out of here, I'm going back to Bermuda. But when I did that, I had to notify the appropriate, IAAF to let them know, hey, I'm from this date, I'm gonna be in Bermuda from her to her. Because if you don't put in your forms as to where you're going, and they come give you an unannounced drug test, it's technically considered a positive drug test because you missed the drug test. So knowing all the rules, information's key, right? Knowing all the rules, knowing all the information in terms of what's legal, not legal. Because the other thing you could fail a drug test for, you could have a cold, go to the pharmacy, pick up some Sudafed. I had a cold. You get drug tested while on Sudafed, you have also failed a drug test. So you also have to be very wary of what you stick in your body, in your mouth. So certain things that all of us in here can basically go and get to fix whatever ailments we got, you as an athlete cannot do that. You have to know, is this on the ban list? Can I take this? What's my options, and so forth.
Maceo, I see you.
Yeah, I think to definitely, because an athletes are popular people, that pitfall is always there. Somebody's always got the eye on this athlete. They're a special person, so they're subject to a lot more pitfalls than the regular person. So, an education, and I'll just share a story with you. My daughter grew up in gymnastics. She's 21 now. As she started to go away in gymnastics to represent Bermuda, I think it had to be when she was probably 12 years old, because you're representing Bermuda, you have to get drug tested, all right? So as a 12-year-old, and my mentality at that time was, she's not a professional, you're drug testing my daughter. What's up with this, So anyway, she gets drug tested, and she comes back home after the drug test, and she says, okay, Daddy, I can't take this, I can't take this, I can't take this, I can't do this here. And I'm like, oh, this is a parenting tool. This is a parenting tool as her getting drug tested at 12 years old. So, of course, me, now I want to go to implement that in football, in drug testing 10-year-olds, or just give them that information early. So if they get that information early, before they get the other information that says this is a right or it's cool to do. So I think the prevention for an athlete is introducing them early and being transparent about what Phillips talked about, transparency, and me working with kids in Bermuda, of course, marijuana is around football all the time. You give them your stories. You give them your stories, what this did or didn't do for you. And that's the prevention mechanism, to get them early and educate them early so they know what it is, and that's part of the foundation.
Mr. Goddard? I saw you grab your mic.
Well, in regards to it, I think if the kids want it bad enough, they make the sacrifices. It's exactly, Maceo's daughter, she came back, he had to sort of say, you can't take this, you can't take that, and babysit the process. She came back knowing, and so she then knew the information and the knowledge, and that's it. Those who are willing to be, but still trying to keep a foot in being this social person and being cool or whatever, for whatever use, then they're not, and they're going to get found out. They may be able to carry for, 6 months or period, but at some point they're going to get found out. And the real athletes, the real ones that really want it, are just going to do what it takes. They're going to know that they can't take this. I was saying earlier about taking Sudafeds. I remember I had a cold, and I was like, I just want some Vicks or something to take. And I'm calling the doctor and said, look, I'm stuffy, and he said, you can't take that, you can't take that. And I was like, well, I just gotta sleep and breathe out my mouth. Yeah. So that's just what it is. And when you really want it, you find a way. And we're in the best of sleeps, but I just had to deal with it. Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback on him. And sometimes as athletes and you get to a higher level, there becomes the recreational side where you can actually get stuff put in your stuff. It's happened to me. Somebody put something in my drink and I blacked out for the next 14 hours. Here's the problem with that. Now I have to go to FIBA, and I have to go to ULAB. Now I have to go to my domestic league, and I have to get drug tested for the next 6 months randomly by them. So I can't take Vicks, let me see, I think I wrote it down. I tried to remember it. Buckley's, paracetamol, all these different things. If they find it in my system within this 6 months, not only will they ban me, they're not going to give me the normal 2-3 year ban, they're banning me for 5 to 7 years, which means your career is over. So it comes back to exactly what Mr. Goda said and what you hear Maceo say as well. It's a choice. And you know, it comes down to the fact that how bad do you want it? And I always tell my kids the same thing, choices are aligned with consequences. What you choose, there's a consequence behind it, and if you can't deal with it, you better choose wisely.
I do want to wrap up. I'm sorry. I don't think I keep leaving out the female in the room.
Thank you. I'd like to, from an Olympic Association standpoint, and I know that the legalization of marijuana and the decriminalization of marijuana is a really sexy topic to talk about right now. But while the government is going through those paces, we as athletes and as coaches of athletes have to understand that what's good for the gander is not good for the goose if it's going to lay a golden egg, yeah? So at the end of the day, like everyone has said, this is a personal choice. And if you are going to be at the top of your game, then that is not for you. And it's not for your friends. Like, that's just it. So surround yourself with people who are on your team who are not going to push you in a direction that you're not trying to go. At the end of the day, I mean, that's taking care of your body, that's keeping your eye on the prize, and that's making sure that you don't fail a drug test. We had a situation like that with one of our major teams this year where we lost an incredible athlete. Need your love and your energy poured into these kids because they feel that every day. And something that, that I really kind of, I got from the commenter right there, this lady, is that this is not just, this might be the only sense of purpose that somebody has, right? It's where they get love, it's where they have belonging, it's where, it's sport, yes, but for a lot of them it's life. So if you are shaping that young life, let's just make sure that you're doing it correctly and with the right training, and that those powers that be, including the BOA, are able to support you through that journey. Getting yourself certified as a coach, or getting yourself certified in whatever it is that you need to push these young people to the next level. So I hope that you're learning from us as much as we've learned from some of your comments, which have been incredible. But yeah, just keep going.
Mr. Phillips?
My sentiments are the same. The knowledge is here. And there are the athletes out there that are there. I know Freddie Evans opened up his camp and he's put a fire underneath me when I saw somebody like Craig Hodges in the gym and I can play one-on-one against him, and I'm like, I can attain that level. You have that power that's in this room. I get it. You come from a small island, but guess what? Dynamite comes in small packages. Don't ever discredit the size of this place. There is talent. Just find it, groom it, and like I said before, hold them accountable. It's one of the biggest things I see a lot of young people around here nowadays miss is accountability. They don't have somebody to say, listen, man, you know better. Listen, you know that you can't do that. This is not what you are trying to do. If you're going to the Olympics, why are you trying to go to the club every weekend? That's a contradiction of what you really want. So if you are a leader or you're a coach or a mentor, take it seriously, because you could have the next big athlete at your fingertips that you could let slide because you don't hold them accountable, or you don't show them love, or you don't show them that consistency that they need.
Mr. Dill?
I think I'll just leave with, oh, sorry, you said deal?
I said,
I'll take Goda.
you want to finish?
Can I take Goda?
You want to finish off as Mr. Deal, Mr. Gooder?
Mr. Deal? Okay, I'll speak. As Mr. Deal, what I'll leave you with, Mr. Deal will leave you with is, how many players, professional players, in England and America have we produced out of 60,000? And if I just give you a comparison and I say, well, okay, somewhere like Jamaica who have That's a couple million. And if I specifically say then England, you have to think how many Jamaicans are playing. Now, England is the most watched league in the world, but yet we're producing players to be able to play at that level over in England, whether it's Premier League or within the 4 leagues. So we have the ability, we have the coaching and the quality. I think that when we move kids on from the ages of 14 to 16 and we get them challenging at next level, then that's when they raise and go to next level. We haven't even mentioned someone like Flora Duffy. She's a world champion. She's from her. And I don't quite know the history, but I believe that school up until the age of probably 16 to 18, she's here within Bermuda. So it don't surprise me that she's become a world champion. She's become a world champion up to that age, and then went overseas and then had kicked on to the next level. So as coaches, mentors, and even as athletes, know you got it up to that age, but it's about that application, hard work, and if you want it enough, you'll make the sacrifice and commitment, because that's exactly what we've all done.
Mr. Gooder?
Mr. Gooder, thank you. Just say that one more time. Just say that.
Mr. Gooder?
Thank you. Thank you guys for this opportunity to share with you. What I would say, as you see across the different disciplines of sports, it's a lot of the same information. So there's a difference between a football player and an athlete. There is a difference between an athlete and a sprinter. So building an athlete is very, very similar. So we have to learn how to collaborate to build that athlete. Now that athlete will make a choice which discipline that he chooses to go. So at certain age, and usually the age could be around 13, 14, that athlete makes that choice. You hear in Bermuda that we're competing for it. So we need to organize, to collaborate, to build that athlete, because it's a lifestyle, isn't it? I mean, I look at Ms. Horton here, she still looks like an athlete. Yeah. So it's a lifestyle that we have to introduce to our kids. It's definitely a lifestyle, and I'll share a story. I'll share a story. Yeah, a story that the first thing that I was observing in school. I was in school in '91, and going to all black college. It was a lot of Jamaicans there that were winning all the races for us in our track and field. They was winning the races, and then I'm watching the Olympics. I went to the Olympics, and they're running for the United States. And then I watched what Jamaica did. They built boat. They figure out how to build using a boat, and the fastest women in the world, and they keep replicating that all the time. It's possible, and Jamaica's smaller than China. The way is smaller. Jamaica's smaller than the US. So our size is actually our benefit rather than something that's not beneficial. Yes, we do have to go and compete against other people, but we can build a template here collectively that we produce an athlete first. And once you produce an athlete, he decides where he goes. It's not our choice. Or she, sorry. Don't do that to me. No, you're scaring me now. You But we have to collaborate, and we have to cooperate more.
Okay. And Mr. Roman?
It's a great panel. I'm honored to be here with all the incredible talent that's sitting next to me and comes from such a small country. And that's one of my things that I kind of look back at and kind of, try to figure out why don't we develop more people. Because I realized that in high school, I wasn't the most talented person in our high school. If we were picking track and field teams, I know of 3 people who were probably better than me just as in terms of an athlete. So I go, okay, why was that the case, that I know these 3 people at that level were better than I did and didn't end up being at a higher level, or the level, I guess you couldn't go higher level, but as the level in which I achieved. And so that is the thing that I guess we're all here together to try to get the diamonds that we do have to be polished and get to the top. The one thing we're all collectively saying is we have those diamonds. What do we need to do, and things we need to put in place to get them to where we ultimately desire most of us to be, which is to be the best version of whoever that person is. So for me, I think the thing we need to take away is that we have the information, we have the knowledge. Application is obviously critical. You know, had all of us kind of reiterate that. And not only that nowadays, it's also, when I say about knowledge, and I explain this to a few people, it's not just the knowledge you have personally. Who's your who? Who's your context? So in terms of in the sport of track and field, my knowledge is vast, and it's not just that my personal knowledge is vast. If I don't know something, I could pick up the phone or send a WhatsApp or text or somebody to somebody who I know might have that information or that contact. And that's the other aspect about it. So just up here, I think this panel, we're pretty well connected around the planet. What, 6 degrees of separation, right? And I say I got the track world pretty well, 6 degrees, pretty covered. And so I've been around some of the best people on the planet in our sport and had the ability to reach out and touch these people. So the information, if I don't immediately have it, I can get it. And I think that's the case with a lot of us. So the information in this day and age is definitely not the problem. So that's one thing we can tick off. Okay, we got that. But the application of it, like you're saying, is understanding the kids you have and how to get them to apply that knowledge. So I think that's our big push in terms of this whole sporting thing we're putting on here today and this weekend. I think that's critical. So I hope we all go out here armed with that information and knowledge and the possibilities or ways to go out and apply it.
I want to thank the panelists for sharing their knowledge and experiences. Got a question up the back? Oh boy. Can you come down? Can you come
Evening, everybody. My name is Sancho Smith. I am a track and field athlete. Basically, I had in mind, as an athlete, I experienced a lot of my peers that over time they seem to get bored of the sport that they take part of, and seeing how much talent they have, I try to encourage them to stick with it for now, but I don't really believe that I should force them to. So what advice do you have for me on this?
Well, I mean, I think, okay. I think that what you're doing is, in terms of as a friend or whatever, is to constantly, not necessarily be a pain about it, but always acknowledge them. Hey, here's the benefits. Yeah, come on, let's just do it. You're good at it. You're talented at it. What else you gonna do? You're gonna go over here and do what? Hang out and do nothing? Just for an hour or two coming, because the thing is, what you're seeing is, like you said, they get bored of it. It's like bored, okay, we do this day in and day out, and you're not necessarily achieving or going anywhere with it. But the sad thing is, though, they don't see the long-term picture of it. So sometimes sitting down with them, and you feel like they have the ability and talent, but it's also getting them to talk to other people, like myself, Mr. Bean, who's actually achieved or been there. Because sometimes I think people need to hear it from somebody else to say, hey, I think you have the ability to get to the highest level. Because people feel like if somebody else buys into who I am and believes in me, it also helps them be more interested in what they're doing. So what you're doing is good, but the key is collectively trying to get other people to also help to influence them to stay into the sport.
You are a diamond in the rough, right?
Thank you.
I don't even know you like that, but I know your name, yeah? This is not for everybody, right? You need to start building your network. So at the end of the day, people will hop on board or they won't. If you have a talented friend, these people around here will rein him in or her in and keep them involved in the sport if they want it. But one thing I've learned over my career and my life is that you can't make people care. So at the end of the day, if you are willing to put in the work, you surround yourself with people who are willing to put in the work, that will grow you. So as a friend, you do the best you can to make sure your friend is cool and okay, but that's up to the rest of the people in this room to keep that person engaged in the sport. That's not up to you.
I'm not going to contradict anything, but what I'm going to say is, when I think about my experience, or not even my experience, what I would say is that if you're finding yourself being bored in sport, I would say not take a rest from it, but actually doing other sports is also going to contribute to you being a better track and field. So whether that's you playing basketball, whether that's you decide to just go for a jog, where you may be a sprinter, or you decide to play hockey or some form of sport, it just allows you to stay active. And while perhaps you just have this period of you're finding it a bit boring, that love will come back and that passion will come back. But it's important you stay active doing another sport, or whilst you're still doing it. So I'm not trying to contradict, if you follow what I'm saying, because what I'm finding in England now, this is what they're saying too, this is a benefit for kids to be doing multiple sports, because they're pushing these sports down kids' throats at a young age, and kids are running out of love and passion. So if that's what you're finding, then play some cricket, because playing sport is going to help you and benefit you. So when you do return back, you're not, well, I ain't played for 8 months, or I ain't played for 2 years. It's like you're still active, and that will still, you'll come back fresh, but still active. And I think then you'll be able to just really take off, and because it don't happen too often where you fall out of love with or find it boring for a long period. It's certainly in my career, I don't, playing football, I never found that I had a period where I was like, I'm bored of this. My wife would like that to be the case. Not football again. But I hope that sort of answers your question. Doing other sports can help you while you're going through this little lull. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
That was Mr. Deal anyway. That was Mr. Deal, right?
I guess my advice to you is the same thing I said before. Elevation requires separation. If you want to go up, you got to drop some people. I'm not saying you drop your friends, but I tell you what, if you get to the top, you will drop people. And it's not a bad thing, because sometimes dead weight needs to be dropped. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. Elevation requires separation. I have the same 5, 6, 7 friends that I've had for like ever. And they love me because it could be 3 months where I'm in training, where we're traveling all over the place, and you will not hear from me because I'm trying to win. And I can't do the emotional thing with you. I can't do I can't, because this is where I have to be. And some people can't handle it. And some people won't handle it. And guess what? They just showed their card. They're not really in your corner. So elevation requires separation. That's going to be your biggest thing. If you want to be great, you're going to have to drop some things, some habits, some people on the back burner.
Good evening. My name is Acacia Parsons. I am also a track and field athlete, and I have kind of a question, but like a comment as well, to the point where it was that elite, like school type thing wouldn't really be, not necessarily a good thing, but wouldn't make much of a difference. But as an athlete, I feel that if we did have, especially in track and field, if we did have some sort of elite program, I think it would keep the athletes focused for longer, as in like how his point where kids get bored, because as myself, like, I think a lot of kids, they stop sports and stuff because they don't see the benefits, or if it's not something that's pushing them. So if you have like an elite program, you have these kids feeling like they're on another level. So other kids, to me, are gonna wanna partake in the sport and take part. So that's just comment type.
Yeah, you make a very informed perspective, very informed, because the kids need to see it to touch it. They're not got the perspective as adults that I see my life in, at 15 and I see what I'm going to be doing at 30 and I know why I'm going to do it. They don't have that experience and exposure. You see, Miss Horton here talked about her mother dragged her to the pool when she didn't want to go. Her mother had the perspective, this is what you need.
But I knew I was going to be an Olympian at 5.
Let's get that clear. Yeah. So you make a good point, and that's something that the powers may be that we have to start to consider as to allow you kids to be able to see it and keep you focused. I know as boys, definitely, trying to focus cross tomorrow is a difficult thing for boys. Girls is a little bit differently. They can have a lot more long-term focus. I have a son and a daughter, and I have to manage my son every day, and I don't really have to manage my daughter. She manages me. So getting to putting that opportunity, and I'll speak of it from another perspective as well. My son is away, and I'm taking $25,000 out of my money every year and sending my son away. That's doing something to Bermuda's economy. And I'm not the only one doing those things. So if we do have something of a elite standard for your kids, that's something that it needs to be considered. And how do we get there, and to keep you engaged and keep you motivated. So it's a very good perspective that you bring up.
I think you're talking about basically feeling a part of something, because you want to feel like I have a direction or directive in terms of what you're a part of. But as I notice in track and field, every year there are summer meets, there are track clubs that have meets and stuff on, so you have things that you're focused and targeted on. So you have short-term immediate goals and long-term goals, because you can ultimately go to your coaches and say, okay, what's our 2-year, 3-year, 4-year plan? So with age group, you have under 17, or actually under 18 now, and then under 20, you have World Youth, you have World Juniors, you have Carifta Games, you have CAC, this immense, so you know what the calendar is. So that's direction and focus. In terms of, because basically what you're looking at is talking about a label. In terms of direction and coaching, I think you have all the tools and all the components in place. It's just you as an athlete, sometimes if that's what you're looking for, you have to sit down with the coaches that you have and say, okay, what's our plan? Where are we going? What's our short-term goal? What's our long-term goal? And I think they do that. But how, I know at Dash, I know Mia gave her athletes diary. Did you guys give out diaries? So for people to write down, and then so journals, yeah. So, but then you could also flip on that same side and go, okay, the beginning of the year, what's our yearly goals? Where are we going? What's our achievements? So to me, it's more about a direction as opposed to, I see what you're saying. You want to feel like, hey, this is you are in a program, but you're trying to, you put it in a nice shiny package kind of situation so like, hey, my friends, oh man, she's a part of this. But ultimately, like we're all saying here, the journey is actually lonely. To be at the top, you got to be basically unbalanced, to be honest with you, because you're gonna spend more time doing this thing than there's things you have to sacrifice and spend time doing this one task. In your case, running track, right? So you got to realize that that's the situation. This is what I wish to achieve. This is what I got to give up. This is what I got to work towards.
Okay. Hello, my name's Talila, and I have a comment and a question. So I feel like, Talila, my name's Talila. And I feel like this was a nice setup for you guys to talk and share out how the behind the scenes go in sports. And I just feel like there should have been so much more sport people, children especially, in this room right now. Like, for you guys to be speaking to us, it makes such a big difference. Like, not that much celebrities that made it out of Bermuda come back and actually speak to us. Like, not much, you don't see us, you see him, it's over there. And then just bye after that. But it was really nice seeing you guys. And my question is, as an athlete, did you ever doubt yourself? If so, how did you mentally overcome those obstacles?
Oh yeah, most definitely. There's always a doubt. There's people, we're human. So, I mean, ultimately I had daily goals. So when I was at Arkansas, when I was at university, I know what practice was for the day, and I had goals that day. I'm gonna do A, B, and C, and sometimes that didn't happen. And you go, okay, man, can I do this? So yes, that's, you have bad days and good days, and sometimes you have a few bad days in a row, and you really think, man, this is rough. What's the problem? What's wrong? How do I get over this? Or I know a lot of us haven't talked about injuries. You know, I've had some pretty catastrophic injuries. I broke my back in '92. My spinal process is L3, 4, and 5. And so, but by the grace of God, in '92 Olympics, I made the Olympic finals and got fifth at the finals, and I won Grand Prix finals that year. But I had a lot of questions that year. I spent a ton of time in the training room. Man, is this for me? Should I continue to do this? So yeah, that's part of the situation. That's part of the grind. Because a lot of people, like all of us that's sitting here, don't make it to the top because certain obstacles, that's another obstacle. Hurdle in your life, you quit. Like, yeah, okay, I got to understand why you stop. But the people who really make it to the top overcome these hurdles, overcome these obstacles.
Thank you.
Speaking of doubting, for me, I had a real growth period because I had the challenge of winning over. You all know sort of me of what Man City fans think of me now and today, but my first year and a half, I used to get booed by Man City fans, and when I say 40,000 of your own fans, and they're calling out the team sheet, and they say number 10, Sean Gooder, and your own fans are booing you, I think there was some doubt in my mind. That I think I know, because I'm thinking, can this 35,000 be wrong in what they think and believe of me? But there was still that much of belief in me that I'm good enough. And I went to another level because I started using a sports psychologist, and I went to another level. And it's all turned around. You know the end story. The end story was for the 5 seasons I was at the club, I was the top goal scorer. The crowd loved me, called me legends. There's people put tattoos of good on them, all that sort of stuff. But I can tell you, yes, they got good tattooed. But it was a real challenge, and it was difficult. So there were times when you may have those doubts, but you got to believe in yourself, and we talk about the support mechanism, the people that jump around you. Because I did have one or two at that time. That was my wife was one. Because I have a lot of people in England saying, "Don't worry about that 40,000. They're talking nonsense. They're going to be all right." But I had to dig deep, and I came out the other side. So now when I walk around Manchester, you be like, you'd have never thought that. So there'll be points where you have that doubt in your career, but you got to have that belief in yourself and keep going.
Don't let other people's limitations of you be your limitations of you. So because you don't believe I can do it, that don't mean I believe I can do it. So don't let other people's limitations of you be your own limitations.
I hope what you're getting up here is that's normal. The doubt thing is like, my sport, I had to launch myself off of a 33-foot platform every day for 20 years. That's not normal. And more often than not, I would get to the front and be like, really? Am I going to do this? Am I going to flip off of this? So the sport in itself taught me bravery. And so, the way to get past that doubt, it's something that you're going to get. So you have to harness it. But being brave is a choice that you can wake up every single morning and make. So if you choose to get over that piece, the next day you choose it again and you choose it again. And if you're choosing to not doubt yourself, it becomes a habit, right? And so the doubt gets a little less, but it's something that becomes manageable. And as everyone said, you surround yourself with people who, when that creeps up, they can help you push it down. But ultimately, I think you can make that choice.
Yeah, this is pretty much my sentiment as well. It's that's the beauty of sports is it's a beautiful struggle, and a lot of the struggle is ear to ear. That's where a lot of people lose the battle of becoming elite is ear to ear. What you hear other people say, what Sean just said, 40,000 people bully you. You could score a goal and they still bully you the next game. But that's the difference between mentally saying, I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to keep doing it, and eventually you're going to get over your stupid prejudices and you're going to love me, or you're going to respect me. And that's a part of the beauty of the struggle. We all doubt. You wake up, you see the newspaper, he's trash. Why is he here? You're around there, you're by yourself, or maybe you're married, whatever not, the doubts go through your head, but that's the beauty of the struggle. Because once you get past that and you begin to excel, now you've mastered how to deal with that struggle. And now it's no longer a thing where it's like totally weighing down on you, but it's one of those things that you learn how to break through and manage. But don't get it twisted. One struggle can be a bigger struggle next time. But you can manage it.
It's
Thank
just
you.
to finish off, just to add to that. I actually, when I was younger, I used to go to a speech therapist where I used to stutter because my brain was working quicker than my mouth could work. So, yeah. But, no, hey, it's making me doubt myself now, see that? No, but once life is always full of fears. It's normal. That's a normal thing in life, and now I'm sitting here talking in front of everybody and talking to a whole room of people, and I can talk properly. So you have to practice, and keep practicing. And you heard me start off here and say that sports has built the courage and the character that I have, and that's what it does. Sports builds courage and character. And with you young kids, you have to keep pushing through those doubts. They're always there. It's normal.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of tonight's proceedings. I know Mr.
Evening again, everyone. First and foremost, on behalf of Bermuda government, I'd like to thank the panelists for participating, including Earl Bates, and give them one more round of applause. Tomorrow morning we will have opening remarks with Honorable Minister and Mr. Sullivan Phillips, who will also be doing a positive message for everyone involved. Please feel free to come by. It's free. Breakfast is provided, so if you don't have any breakfast in the morning, all else, come through, get some breakfast, and enjoy the word. So that will be from 9 to 10 at the latest, and from there, if you have registered, as most people have, I think, class all breakout sessions will be upstairs in Hallett. This is Hallett Hall, so all breakout sessions will be upstairs. All right, and they will be from 10 tomorrow right through to about 4, and then some more on Sunday. But everything, once we leave that cafeteria, everything else is upstairs here. So spread the word. And again, if you don't have any breakfast, have breakfast with Mr. Sullivan Phillips and our minister. All right, lastly, also, it's food outside. Oh, you're getting cheesy. Food outside. Please feel free to take what you wish. And thank you all for coming, and I'll see you over the course of the weekend.